The room is full, but suddenly, very quiet. Cameras are already rolling. A polished chessboard sits between two people who do not belong in the same sentence, at least, not according to the man smirking across the table. He adjusts his jacket, straightens his cuffs, glances at the crowd like an actor waiting for applause. Across from him, a black woman sits calmly. No branded hoodie. No team jacket. No title card beneath her name. Just stillness. The narrator's voice is low, controlled. He didn't invite her to play chess because he respected her. He invited her because he wanted a laugh. The Grandmaster taps the clock with confidence. The gesture is casual, almost lazy. He leans back. "You can take white," he says, smiling thinly. "It won't matter." A few people chuckle. Someone in the back whispers, "This should be quick." The woman nods once. No reaction. No nerves. No smile. She studies the board, not with excitement, not with hesitation, but like someone reading a language she's known since childhood. The timer starts. Tick. She reaches forward and makes her first move. The piece lands softly. No dramatic flourish. No hesitation. Just precision. The sound of wood touching wood echoes louder than it should. The Grandmaster's smile freezes. Not fades. Freezes. He leans forward slightly, eyes narrowing, not in amusement now, but confusion. The crowd doesn't notice yet. But he does. He blinks. Once. Then again. That wasn't a beginner's move. That wasn't a random move. That wasn't even a safe move. That was aggressive. Intentional. Prepared. The narrator cuts in, voice calm but sharp. That first move wasn't wrong. It wasn't lucky. It was a message. The Grandmaster chuckles, too loudly. Interesting, he says, pretending nothing's changed. But his hand hovers over the board longer than it should. He glances at the clock. Tick. He makes his reply. Confident, conventional, expected. The kind of move you make when you believe you're teaching, not competing. The woman doesn't look at him. She looks only at the board. Her second move comes faster. Sharper. The Grandmaster's foot stops bouncing. Someone in the front row shifts in their seat. A whisper ripples through the crowd now, not laughter this time. Wait. The camera zooms in. You can see it in his face. The calculation. The realization. The creeping awareness that something is off. Very off. He clears his throat. Where did you learn to play? He asks casually. She doesn't answer. She taps the clock. Click. The sound lands like a challenge. The narrator lets the silence stretch. In chess, confidence disappears before defeat does. And right now, his confidence was bleeding out. The Grandmaster leans closer to the board now. His posture has changed. The smug lean is gone. His back is straight. His jaw tight. He scans the position again. Then again. The crowd sees it too now. This isn't a joke match. This isn't charity. This isn't entertainment. This is pressure. Real pressure. He looks up at her for the first time, not amused, not dismissive, but cautious. Almost respectful. Almost. She meets his eyes briefly. Just long enough. No smile. No triumph. Just calm. The narrator delivers the hook, clean and controlled. That was the moment he realized. He didn't invite her to lose. He invited her to expose him. The clock ticks louder now. The Grandmaster hesitates. And the room holds its breath. She didn't grow up in chess clubs. There were no trophies on shelves. No framed certificates. No photos of her shaking hands with famous players. Her first chessboard was missing 2 pieces. One knight had a chipped ear. A pawn was replaced with a button. It sat on a small kitchen table, always pushed against the wall after dinner. She learned the game the way some people learn survival, quietly, patiently, without applause. Her father taught her the rules late at night. Not from books. From repetition. If you rush, he used to say, you lose before the game starts. She listened. While other kids were outside, she stayed in. Not because she was afraid, but because the board made sense. Chess didn't care who you were. It didn't care about accents, skin, money, or whether people expected you to fail. It only cared about choices. And consequences. Years passed. Life got louder. Bills replaced school notebooks. Responsibilities crowded the hours she once spent studying endgames. Chess became something private. Something sacred. She played online under a username no one could trace. She studied positions on her phone during lunch breaks. She solved puzzles while waiting for buses. Not to prove anything. Just to stay sharp. Because chess, to her, wasn't a hobby. It was identity. When she entered that event hall, she didn't expect to sit across from a Grandmaster. She came to watch. To listen. To absorb. She wore plain clothes because that's what she owned, not because she was trying to disappear. But disappear is exactly what everyone assumed she would do. When the invitation came, half joking, half mocking, she felt the room tilt. Not fear. Recognition. She saw it immediately, the smile that wasn't friendly. The tone that wasn't respectful. The audience primed for laughter, not competition. She could have declined. Many people would have. But chess had taught her something early. When someone underestimates you, the board becomes honest. She sat down not to embarrass him. Not to make a statement. But because the position was fair. Because the pieces were equal. Because rules mattered. And because she had followed them her entire life. As the game began, her mind quieted. The noise of the room faded. The cameras vanished. The crowd dissolved into nothing. All that remained was structure. Squares. Lines. Possibilities. She didn't think about winning. She thought about clarity. Each move came from preparation built over years of being ignored. Years of learning without permission. Years of being underestimated and letting it sharpen her instead of break her. She didn't rush. She never did. Her calm wasn't arrogance. It was familiarity. The board wasn't intimidating. It was home. When she made that first move, it wasn't aggressive to shock. It was correct. That mattered more. Because correctness doesn't ask for approval. It simply exists. And as the game unfolded, one truth became impossible to ignore. She wasn't playing to impress. She was playing the same way she always had. With discipline. With restraint. With intent. And for the first time, the audience wasn't watching a joke anymore. They were watching preparation meet arrogance. Silently. Inevitably. He had built his reputation on being untouchable. Years of titles. Endless invitations. A name that carried weight before he even entered a room. People didn't challenge him anymore. They performed around him. At events like this, he was less a competitor and more a feature, something the audience expected to admire, not question. That's why the invitation mattered. Not the chessboard. The moment. He'd seen her in the crowd earlier. Quiet. Unassuming. Easily overlooked. And that was exactly why he chose her. The smile he gave wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was the kind of smile used when the outcome feels guaranteed. A safe joke. A controlled spectacle. Something to reinforce the hierarchy everyone already believed in. When she accepted without hesitation, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. Brief. Dismissed. The game started, and at first, everything felt normal. Too normal. He responded to her opening with a textbook reply. Clean. Conservative. The kind of move that says I'm in charge here. He leaned back, scanning the crowd as if to say, relax. I've got this. But then she played again. And again. Each move wasn't flashy. It was efficient. That's what bothered him. Efficiency doesn't respect titles. It ignores them. He adjusted his posture, leaning forward now. His fingers hovered above the pieces longer than before. The room shifted. Subtly. The laughter thinned. The whispers changed tone. He noticed. That's when the power trip kicked in. He smiled again, this time tighter. You play confidently, he said, loud enough for the audience to hear. A compliment on the surface. A warning underneath. She didn't respond. That annoyed him more than any insult could have. He made his next move harder. Sharper. A slight trap, designed less to win and more to test her nerve. She didn't flinch. She dismantled it calmly. The audience murmured now, low, uncertain. He cleared his throat. You know, he said, chuckling. Sometimes beginners rely on instincts. It works, until it doesn't. The crowd laughed, relieved to have permission again. But his eyes stayed on the board. Not on her. He was trying to regain control, not of the game, but of the narrative. She tapped the clock. Click. No smile. No response. Just progress. That's when irritation leaked through. Not rage. Ego. He began to speak more. Small comments. Half jokes. Explanations no one asked for. A classic tactic. If you can't dominate the board, dominate the room. He gestured lightly toward one of her pieces. Careful there, he said. That square can be dangerous. It sounded like advice. It wasn't. It was a reminder of status. She looked at the square. Then made her move. Not away from danger. Deeper into it. The crowd went quiet again. The Grandmaster's jaw tightened. For the first time, he stopped performing for them. He stopped smiling. This wasn't the match he planned. This wasn't a joke anymore. It was a test. And he was no longer sure who it was designed for. He leaned in close now, voice lower. You're taking risks, he said. That usually ends badly. She finally looked up. Just once. Only if you don't see the whole board, she replied. The room felt colder after that. The narrator's voice returns, measured and precise. Power trips don't fail loudly. They fail the moment control is questioned. He stared at the position again. Longer this time. Because somewhere between confidence and caution, he felt it. Pressure. Real pressure. The board didn't change. He did. What started as confidence had narrowed into focus. What had felt like control now felt like confinement. Every square seemed tighter than before. He stared at the position, longer than any move so far. His fingers hovered, pulled back, hovered again. The clock didn't care. Tick. Across from him, she waited. Not staring. Not performing. Just present. The audience could feel it now, the shift that doesn't announce itself but settles into the room like pressure before a storm. This was no longer a demonstration. It was examination. He made a move that should have been safe. Should have. She responded instantly. Not fast out of panic. Fast from certainty. The sound of her piece landing snapped through the room. The Grandmaster's eyes widened, just slightly. A murmur rippled through the seats. Someone whispered, That's a tactic. Another voice, quieter. That's preparation. He leaned back, exhaled through his nose, then forced a smile. You're enjoying this, he said, half laughing, loud enough for the microphones. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her next move answered for her. The trap was invisible to the untrained eye. But he saw it. Too late. Not a mistake. A sequence. One move ago, escape had existed. Now it didn't. His foot stopped tapping. His jaw set hard. He checked the clock again. Time was slipping. And so was something else, certainty. He reached for a piece, paused, then changed his mind. A second hesitation. That was new. The audience noticed. So did the cameras. This was the moment confidence cracks, not loudly, not publicly, but internally. The voice in his head shifted from I control this to how do I get out? She had taken something from him without touching him. Space. Options. Authority. He tried to complicate the position, pushing forward aggressively, hoping to force chaos. She welcomed it. Simplified. Exchanged. Removed variables. Every move she made narrowed the board. Not violently. Methodically. The crowd leaned in now. Phones lowered. Breaths held. No one was laughing anymore. He rubbed his temple, eyes darting across lines he'd seen thousands of times before, but never like this. Because this time, the board wasn't offering solutions. It was delivering consequences. The narrator's voice cuts in, steady. Arrogance doesn't collapse when it's challenged. It collapses when it's outplayed. He finally spoke again, quieter this time. You've studied, he said. Not a question. An admission. She met his eyes briefly. Everyone studies, she replied. Not everyone prepares. The words landed heavier than any capture. He swallowed. Made his move. And immediately knew. It wasn't losing yet. But it was wrong. She saw it the moment his fingers left the piece. Her response came without hesitation. The position locked. The evaluation shifted. The air in the room felt different, thicker, slower. He leaned back, hands off the board now, as if touching it might make things worse. The realization crept in, not sudden, not dramatic. Unavoidable. He wasn't being embarrassed. He was being dismantled. Quietly. Cleanly. In front of everyone. The clock ticked again. Louder than before. He stopped pretending. No jokes. No commentary. No sideways glances at the crowd. Just the board. And the truth sitting on it. For the first time in the match, he wasn't searching for cleverness. He was searching for survival. He studied the position again, slower now. Deeper. Not looking for advantage, but for damage control. And that was the moment it fully landed. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't luck. This was structure. She had planned this path several moves ago. Maybe more. Every exchange, every simplification, it all pointed in one direction. An endgame. A clean one. The kind of endgame that exposes habits, not mistakes. He checked the material. Counted again. Nothing obvious. And that was the problem. She hadn't taken much. She had taken everything that mattered. Space. Tempo. Options. He leaned back and exhaled, slowly. Interesting position, he said, more to himself than to her. She waited. That's what she'd always done, waited until the board asked her to move. He finally made a decision. Not aggressive. Not cowardly. Practical. A move designed to hold, not win. The crowd barely reacted. But she did. Her eyes softened, not with sympathy, but recognition. This was the moment she'd been steering toward. The board was quiet now. No threats screaming. No sacrifices flying. Just inevitability. She mirrored his restraint. Didn't rush the finish. Didn't show excitement. She improved her pieces. Strengthened weaknesses. Closed doors he hadn't realized were still open. Every move felt like a door locking behind him. He tried to create imbalance, pushing a pawn, offering a trade, adjusting the structure. She accepted only what benefited her. Declined everything else. This wasn't domination. It was denial. The crowd felt it. You could see it in their faces, people leaning forward not for spectacle, but for understanding. This was chess stripped bare. He glanced at the clock again. Time pressure crept in, not dramatic, but persistent. She had more. Always had. Because she wasn't spending it. She had seen this position before. Not on this board. But in study. In preparation. In solitude. He reached for a piece, paused, then set it back. A micro-hesitation. Again. She noticed. She always noticed. The narrator's voice returns, calm and final. The smartest players don't force mistakes. They wait for the moment their opponent realizes there are none left to avoid. He finally looked up at her. Not challengingly. Not dismissively. Honestly. You're not here by accident, he said. She nodded once. No triumph. No reply. Just acknowledgement. He made his move. The only one left. She responded immediately. The evaluation dropped. Anyone who understood chess felt it instantly. This was over. Not in moves. In meaning. He leaned back, eyes closing briefly. The room stayed silent, waiting for something dramatic that never came. Because the end wasn't loud. It was settled. The room no longer breathed. Every sound felt too loud, the soft hum of lights, the faint click of a camera lens adjusting focus, the distant shuffle of a chair. The board sat frozen between them. He stared at it, unmoving. Not calculating anymore. Accepting. The position was clear now. Brutally so. Any player at his level could see it. No tricks left. No resources hiding in the shadows. No miracle save. Just a slow, unavoidable end. He exhaled and finally spoke. "You've outplayed me." The words landed without drama. No sighs from the crowd. No applause. Just shock. Because grandmasters don't say that publicly. Not like this. Not in front of cameras and strangers. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The board already had. He made one more move, not because it helped, but because ritual demanded it. The clock was tapped. The piece was placed. She answered. Clean. Final. The last defensive square vanished. The evaluation wasn't just losing anymore. It was terminal. He leaned back, hands falling into his lap. For the first time since the match began, he looked around the room. Not as a performer. As a man caught in a moment he couldn't edit out later. Someone in the crowd shifted, uncomfortable. Another raised a phone, then lowered it again, unsure whether this should be recorded or respected. He reached forward slowly. Paused. Then tipped his king onto its side. The sound was soft. Wood against wood. But it echoed louder than anything else that day. The room remained silent. No cheers. No gasps. Just realization. He looked up at her. "I underestimated you," he said. "That was my mistake." Not apology. Accountability. She met his gaze calmly. "Chess does that," she replied. "It shows you what you assume." A few heads nodded instinctively. The moment didn't belong to him anymore. It never had. An official stepped closer, unsure whether to intervene, then stopped. This wasn't chaos. It was order restoring itself. The Grandmaster stood, straightening his jacket out of habit. Titles don't disappear just because pride does. But something else had changed. The crowd saw it. The cameras caught it. He wasn't angry. He wasn't defensive. He was quiet. He extended his hand. She took it. Firm. Equal. The narrator's voice returns, low, deliberate. Defeat doesn't always arrive as failure. Sometimes it arrives as truth. The handshake broke. She gathered her things calmly, as if this were any other game. No lingering looks. No search for validation. Just closure. As she walked away, the audience parted slightly, not dramatically, not ceremonially, but with space. Respect had entered the room without asking permission. Behind her, the Grandmaster remained standing. Still. Watching. Not the board. Her. The room slowly remembered how to breathe. People shifted in their seats. A few whispered, not about the loss, but about the precision. About the calm. About how the joke had quietly vanished. The cameras stopped rolling. But the story didn't. She didn't wait for congratulations. Didn't pose. Didn't linger. She walked out the same way she had walked in, unnoticed by most, underestimated by all. Outside, the noise of the world returned. Cars passed. Phones buzzed. Life moved forward. But something had shifted. Clips of the match spread quickly, not with flashy captions, not with exaggeration, but with disbelief. Who is she? How did he lose like that? Was this planned? None of those questions mattered. The board had already answered. In the days that followed, analysts broke down the game. Not to mock him, but to understand her. They paused at the opening, replayed the transition, lingered on the endgame. Again and again, the same conclusion surfaced. This wasn't an upset. It was preparation meeting arrogance at exactly the wrong time. The Grandmaster didn't deny it. In interviews, he didn't blame pressure or distraction. He said one thing, and only once. She played with clarity. That was enough. For her, the aftermath was quieter. A few messages arrived. Some respectful. Some curious. A few apologetic. She read them. She didn't chase them. Recognition had never been the goal. Back home, her board waited where it always had. Worn edges. Familiar weight. She set the pieces carefully, muscle memory guiding her hands. Same rituals. Same discipline. Nothing had changed. And everything had. Because the victory wasn't about exposure. It was about proof. Not proof for the world, but for anyone who had ever been underestimated and told to stay in the audience. The narrator's voice softens, reflective. Power doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself, when assumptions fail. The chess world moved on. It always does. But somewhere, a rule quietly rewrote itself. Skill doesn't ask permission. It doesn't need an invitation. It only needs a board. The final line lands gently. No drama. No noise. He wanted a joke for the crowd. She gave him a lesson instead. And lessons, if you're lucky, change how you play forever.